Hey Libra, how's it going? I got some oracle messages for you here today. And what I'm getting is that there's some sort of concealed wisdom, something hidden, some wisdom hidden within you that is essentially being betrayed by a more obvious wisdom within you. Something deeper down that needs to be explored and discovered, and will be discovered when the more surface level wisdom is kind of seen through. So basically this is separating what you want to learn from what you actually need to learn. There are oftentimes things that we really want to learn and do, and we can explore ways of learning these, whether it's talking to people who are experts in these fields, going to university, reading books, traveling somewhere, gaining experience, getting a new job or something like that because we feel we really want to do something. And then when we do all these things, we find that we're unenthusiastic. It's not really clicking. It's not really working. It's not all that fun. It's not entertaining. It feels kind of empty, more like a slog. We thought we really wanted to do it. And then when we pare it down and separate it out and discover why there's no enthusiasm here, we can find out it's because we would rather be doing what we need to do, and what we want to do is actually a little too superficial. And when we discover what we need and fulfill that learning experience, we start learning what we actually needed to learn, enthusiasm comes back up. And this can be really tricky. How do you differentiate between what you want to learn and what you need to learn? It can be very, very hard. Sometimes we think, oh, I want to learn this because I can get a good job doing it and making more money doing it. And oftentimes we have to think that way. But then we're not going to really enjoy that thing because we're coming at it from a place of, well, this fulfills a financial need that I have, and it's a job that I can do. I'm okay at it. I need to learn about it a little bit more. It's somewhat interesting. Out of all the things that I can do for money, this seems to be the most interesting, so I guess I want to do this. And our deeper calling, our deeper need that our soul needs to learn, that discipline, that aspect of life gets pushed aside, gets pushed into the subconscious, and we might not even know what it is. So how you do that can be different for everybody. How you find out, how you separate out or discover that need and bring it to light, and figuring out how you can develop it. Now I'll pull some cards and we'll see what we can do there. But before we get into that, I pulled an I Ching hexagram for you. We got hexagram number 4, or childhood. Now basically this calls for a need to educate something or someone. Now some of you might be the teacher in this. This is an easy interpretation. If you're a teacher in some capacity, this idea is only teach enthusiastic, devout students who have come to you for instruction. Don't seek out students, let them come to you. If you seek out students, then you're going to get half-hearted students. Don't teach half-hearted students is basically the advice here. Only teach full-hearted students, students who really want to learn from you, who are devout and dedicated to the learning process. If you are the student, then don't be a half-hearted student. That's the advice. Make sure that you're completely committed to what this is. And we find that commitment and enthusiasm when it's something that we really actually need to learn. Things that we frivolously want to learn don't maintain that level of enthusiasm. And we can drop out of the learning process, literally drop out of school and things like that, and not even finish, and it will be a lot of wasted time. And here we have these two elements of mountain over stream. These are the two elements that make up this I Ching. And so we have this idea of snow melt coming from a mountain. And it begins as a stream and eventually goes into a river, turns into a river. And this is that idea of educating something from its infancy, or someone from its infancy, at the very beginning of, finding that there is a wisdom here that is concealed and requires education in order to uncover and help fully flourish. So this leads to a larger and larger river, right? More and more education, more and more wisdom, and more ability to affect the world. Rivers bring nourishment to everything and can erode things, and they greatly affect the world. They bring life to the forest and so on. So finding that over time, sediment also forms at the bottom of streams and rivers. And this is a warning against staying a perpetual student. Sometimes we get comfortable being a student. So this is recognizing when it's appropriate to be a student, completely committed and dedicated to learning, but knowing when we've learned enough and not allowing our studenthood, our time as a student, to be prolonged beyond its natural lifespan. Because here we have that idea that it becomes a comfort zone. Being a student, being in a school, or learning from someone, remaining a student can become its own comfort zone. And we get this oftentimes with people who get doctorates in university, or they want multiple doctorates. They stay in the university system for as long as possible. Some of them, even their entire lives, will get 2 or 3 doctorates, and then when it comes time to finally enter the real world, they decide that they're just going to be professors at the school. And they become these sort of incumbent professor students that stay there their whole lives. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with that. If you enjoy the lifestyle of a perpetual student because you feel really called to just learn, and that's all you want to do in this life, that's wonderful. There's absolutely nothing wrong. The problem is when we do it because we're afraid to do anything else. We're afraid to enter the real world and to use the knowledge we've learned. And so we want to stay in our safe space in the university, where our ideas will basically never be challenged. The prevailing theories remain the prevailing theories for 2, 3, 4, 5 generations. Your ideas won't be challenged. Your beliefs won't be challenged. You won't have to do super hard, difficult work with real clients. All of your clients will be either research fellows or other students, and those are really easy people to work with. They'll see you as an authority figure, and you'll just be like, you're like the smartest person in a room full of dumb people. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the times we get that sort of feeling, we're like, oh, I'm really smart and authoritative here, but as soon as you enter a different space, you're just average. Everybody else is just as smart as you. So you don't want to be in that place. You want to go back to where you're top dog. It's your comfort zone. Unfortunately, we see that with some professors. Not all, obviously, but with a handful. This is a warning against becoming that type of a person. And I know it's a long, drawn-out analogy, but it's true. We don't want our learning process to become a comfort zone. We have to do something with what we've learned. We need to recognize when we've learned enough to be able to now act in the world and to do something, and not just be afraid of acting on the knowledge. You just want to collect knowledge and more, collect it, learn and research. And then after enough time goes by, you'll find researchers who are far younger and less experienced than you are now publishing papers, and you're still researching what they're writing. And these are new papers from younger people with less experience. And that's not a good feeling. You'll realize, oh, wait, I'm supposed to be doing this now out in the real world. I'm still consuming knowledge when I should be producing it and pushing it forward, or creating something, or, just becoming more active. You can't stay in the passive role forever, unless, of course, you're called to do that. Like I said, there are perpetual students who do a fine job becoming professors and never leaving their comfort zone, and they actually are very helpful. So if that's you, then this reading's probably not for you. But for those of you who feel like this twinge of, I think I'm doing something wrong here, it's the idea of expand your comfort zone. If you don't want to jump right outside of your comfort zone and into the real world, into the den of vipers or whatever, you can extend the borders of your comfort zone. So there's this is a permaculture analogy. You have like your comfort zone where your house is, and then zone 1 where like your flowers and herbs are, and zone 2 where your fruits and veggies are, and zone 3 where things start to get a little more wild, and like zone 4 where it's basically the edge of the wilderness, and then zone 5 is the wilderness itself. Like things like, you can expand those zones and experience pushing the boundaries of your comfort zone. Especially as a student, you generally don't have to jump right into things and like give yourself total shock and immersion. You can do it step by step, and I get that here with this, because this energy that's like holding you back is, I think, just within yourself. Now, in some cases, this could be someone else who wants to keep you where you are because they recognize your potential and they see in you a competitor. And so they might convince you that you don't know enough yet, you have to keep doing this, you're not experienced enough, you can't go out and do anything yet, you're too stupid, you're not capable enough, you have to stay where you are. Because they see you as a person who can potentially subvert their authority or dethrone them or just compete with them or do what they do better than they do it. So I think for a small percentage of you, this energy is outside of yourself. It is a person trying to hold you back. But I get from most is that this trader energy that is within yourself. It's like what I said at the beginning. There's an obvious wisdom that you have that you can act upon right away. And there's a deeper wisdom that is hidden by the obvious one. And so it's like, it's a trader that's hard to see because the obvious wisdom is what we want to do. We don't necessarily see a problem with it. We see like, okay, I want to do this. I'm good at it. It'll have a payoff. Okay, let's do it. The problem will come when you take a few steps down that road and your enthusiasm vanishes. So if you feel that, if you feel your enthusiasm has vanished and you just don't feel committed to this thing you're doing, that's where this reading, that's who this reading is for. It means that was a more or less frivolous want, and you're ignoring a deeper need. So I'm going to pull some cards for you, and we're going to find out first what this practical aspect of this is, this sort of earthy element. I pulled the Earth, the Sorcerer, and the Trader. So there's a very practical element to what's going on here, and let's discover what that is. The Knight of Cups. So it's finding that balance between, sometimes we think what we really deeply, deeply want to do is just not practical. It's not going to pay the bills, and it's not rooted in logic. It's like rooted in dreaminess and emotionality, and oftentimes it's true. The things that are rooted in dreaminess and emotionality that we really want to do won't pay the bills. That happens often. Trust me, I'm a musician. I know what that's like. And the thing here is to find and explore that need anyway, if you can find the time. Don't think about things in terms of financial gain. That's what's hiding this need from your conscious awareness. That's what's forcing it into your subconscious, is thinking, well, what can I do that can pay off financially? What do I want to do that can pay off financially? And then you think like, okay, well, there's only like 10 possibilities here and I got to pick the one that I want the most. And your need, your emotional need, is not on that list because maybe you've seen it, it came up and you've seen, okay, that's my emotional need, but it's not going to pay the bills, so take it off the list. Don't put it on the list. Put it on the list and see what happens. Pretend like it will financially pay off. Like when I was a teenager and I was like, 12, 13 years old, and I'm like, I will be able to make music pay off for me. Well, it didn't. I mean, I make a little bit doing it, but it's just not really that viable. And I always wrestle with this idea. It's like, well, can I make it viable? And things like that. And just wrestling with the idea can help me be more productive and creative with it. And it can help me have a little bit more faith in the idea. And the more I do it and the older I get, the less I care if it has a financial payoff, but the same amount of enthusiasm and productivity and creativity still comes from it as though it is giving me a financial payoff. Like I have motivation to do it just because I wrestle with the idea. I give myself like a false experimental hope, like, oh, I'm going to hope it's going to pay off, work as though it will. And then working on music becomes more habitual and I do it anyway. And I get better and better at it the more I do it. And then I stop caring if it's going to financially pay off or not. And I become emotionally fulfilled. So perhaps that can be a good mental experiment. And if you have the opportunity to do it, or if you're more like me and you don't really care about where your next meal is coming from, you can spend more time doing it. But those of us who have like children or people we're responsible for, it's going to be a lot more difficult because finances are a lot more important for a person like that. But anyway, if you can find the time and the resources to take your emotional needs seriously, as though it's like going to financially pay off, not believing that it will, but taking it as seriously as something that would, and putting as much effort into it as though you're getting paid to do it. That might unlock an enthusiasm for you and help you discover what it is that you actually do need. Because sometimes we don't know what we need until we start doing something like that. We find the emotional need, and in exploring the emotional need and the productive activities we can do around it, we then discover the more, the things that we need to learn. You know, we'll discover our shortcomings, our gaps in knowledge, you know, when we start doing things. We do the things that we feel like we need to do to emotionally fulfill ourselves, and then one day we'll be like, oh, well, I actually don't have the skill. I want to do this thing, but I actually don't have the skill to do it. But you won't know you lack the skill until you try. You know, you don't know what you don't know until you try to do something. And as you walk down the road of activity, you find things that you don't know. And then you realize, oh, wait, that's what I need to learn. So it can be a long process because we don't know what we need to learn until we find our shortcomings, and we can find our shortcomings through trial and error. And we don't do trial and error if we don't give ourselves the time and space and room to try new things and to try and discover, will this activity emotionally fulfill me? No. Will this one? No. We have to do them. We have to find the time to do them. And it's difficult. It can cost us money. It can cost us time. It's not easy. This is not going to be an easy task for you, Libra. But your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to discover your emotional needs. The Magician on the Sorcerer. Wow. Okay. So we're clarifying the Sorcerer with the Magician, the dark side with the light side. Yeah, here we are talking about the capability to turn that traitorous energy, that sorceress, carrying or being overwhelmed with earthly payoffs, and turning that into a more magician energy who, you know, if the sorcerer performs magic in order to, like, say, earn money, the magician performs magic to alter his consciousness, to change and transmute his emotions. The sorcerer wants to change and transmute actual metals into actual precious metals so he could buy a car, whereas the magician is going to transmute his internal metals, you know, his internal lead into internal gold. It's going to be a more psychological, emotional, and spiritual purpose for the magician. And that could be, that's something that a lot of us struggle with. Again, this is really tied into that Knight of Cups on the earth, is that practical aspect, the pragmatism, the material pragmatism can overwhelm us oftentimes, where we push off what we want to do. We don't bother exploring it because we have so many financial concerns and earthly concerns that it doesn't seem practical or pragmatic to explore our own emotional or psychological needs. But here we have a combination of, like, good therapy, like seeking good, transformative therapy, right? Now, perhaps there's, like, Coming out on the itching hexagram of childhood, I get the sense that there are childhood traumas that make us think this way, that put us in this mentality of, I can only focus on my financial needs, I can only focus on practical needs, I can only focus on social fulfillment, and all the other things are just nonsense, psychological, spiritual needs. Perhaps there are some parapsychological or paranormal phenomena I experience. Just push it, don't think about it, push it away, just focus on practical things. And this denial of the wider aspects and more inner aspects of reality, the stranger aspects of reality, the more spiritual or paranormal aspects of reality, denying them generally doesn't make the situation any better. We can focus on the practical financial stuff and become extraordinarily rich and extraordinarily miserable because we ignored that part. When, like, some simple therapy from a good therapist who understands this stuff, who listens non-judgmentally, who has what some psychologists refer to as undecidability, can be helpful. So maybe this is just for some of you, not all of you, but look into psychotherapists who believe in undecidability, which is a term coined by Devereux, a French psychologist in 1951. I forget his first name. I don't know, but Devereux. Devereux came up with this term called undecidability, which he wanted to be able to integrate mystical, spiritual, and paranormal experiences, what psychologists call anomalous experiences, or anomalous ideas, into psychotherapy, whereas many psychotherapists will just consider it some type of psychosis. They call it magical thinking, where people who have had mystical experiences, like out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, UFO abductions, whatever, they will just prescribe you antipsychotics, antidepressants, lithium, whatever, and tell you to shut up and go back to work. And then you have paranormal researchers who take it all at face value and say, yes, you're a medium, yes, you're a clairvoyant, let's develop that. And those are two extreme concepts which are both very bad, in my opinion. What needs to happen is a undecided approach where you don't go into fantasy and fascination like the paranormal researchers who just want to say, yes, you are clairvoyant, yes, you are a medium, yes, you were abducted by people from Mars or whatever the hell. That would be indulging in fascination with the subject. And then there's the pathologization of the subject, which just says, you're mentally ill, here's some drugs. The undecided approach is, I don't know what this experience was, but let's integrate it, let's discover it, let's explore the phenomenology of it, let's discover the meaning of it for you in your life, let's talk about some past experiences and traumas you've had and how it might relate to this belief in the paranormal or belief in these deep spiritual ideas or the anomalous experiences that you may or may not have had. And these psychotherapists are, well, they're very, very great people in my opinion. They help more people than any other type of therapy. They help more people who have experienced paranormal phenomena or have strong spiritual or paranormal beliefs than any other psychologist will, or paranormal researcher. So perhaps you want to look into someone who is from the school of Devereux or William James or someone like that. And generally, that type of therapy is short-term because it's so effective. Sometimes these patients only have to go for 1 to 5 meetings, and then their ideas and experiences are integrated and their mental health improves very, very rapidly. And that's what I get when I see this together, the Magician and the Knight of Cups. I'm going to pull one more card here to see what this last thing is, clarify one last thing for you. With the Queen of Wands. Yeah, so this is something that shouldn't wait. This thing that you're dealing with, whether it's the therapy thing or not. I know that was very long and drawn out, probably not for everybody. But again, you can interpret it on a more minor scale where maybe not therapy is needed, but some type of integration is needed. And it can't really wait. It's something that needs to be nipped in the bud. It's in its childhood phase now, so ought to be nurtured or dealt with now and not later. If you don't want it to like fester or develop into something that it ought not develop into without being examined. You know, the Queen of Wands is like, put your awareness on it, start coming out of a passive energy and into an active energy. You know, queens are generally passive because they're feminine, but then the Queen of Wands is a feminine fire, so it's like getting into the active masculine side. It's like transforming from passivity into activity, which is a really interesting place to be in. It's an in-between phase, it's a developmental phase, it's an educational phase, it's a transformational phase, and it's also very conscious, it's very aware. You know, it's fire, the light of consciousness. See that halo she's got around her head? She's very aware. She's becoming more and more aware of herself, of her situation, and it's... if you choose not to take the path of increasing your awareness, and this need is left in the subconscious, it could potentially develop into disorders. You know, the more we keep things in our subconscious and we're unaware of them, the more they can develop in undesired ways in our lives, undesired behavior, undesired ideas and ideations, undesired outcomes, because we're simply not aware of what's causing these things to happen. This is like putting your awareness, finding the cause, acting on it. And it's that combination of learning, knowing when you've learned enough, and then acting on it, taking that next step to then do something with it. All right, I'm gonna pull a token for you. One last thing, Libra, to round this all out. Also, there might be some hot-headed, traitorous person or energy in your midst or in your life. There might be someone pressuring you, or some energy, maybe it's within yourself, pressuring you to do something that you feel might not be the best thing for you. There's that little twinge of, is this what I really need, or is this just what I want? Is this what I really need, or is this what just this person wants? And it might not be that bad for you to follow that thing, but again, you're gonna lose your enthusiasm real quick. It could pay off, it could be good, it could be fun, but you're not gonna really want to do it after long. The enthusiasm's gonna just poof, vanish, and you're gonna be left wondering why. Yeah, here we have the secret. This is from the occult group of my tokens. This is the need to look deep within and unlock something that is being ignored or was deliberately hidden. You know, a lock is deliberate. This is not like a landslide naturally came and filled this cave and hid a treasure inside a cave. No, this is someone put a lock on a box and decided to hide something. Again, I get this sense of a childhood trauma. Your consciousness may have decided to block something out or to hide something. Perhaps you decided consciously to ignore a part of yourself because it was impractical, or perhaps because it was disturbing your flow of life. You know, when we have certain ways of seeing reality, certain paranormal experiences, or perhaps paranormal gifts. Maybe we have like precognitive dreams or something like that. And we put a lot of time into thinking about it, dwelling on it, perhaps trying to improve it or develop it further. We neglect our financial needs, or people tell us we're going to neglect our financial needs by chasing this fantastical nonsense, when it's not always fantastical. You don't know it's fantastical until you explore it for a while and determine whether or not it's fantastical. It might be real, it might be useful, it might help develop something in a good way. You have to find out. Is this just fantastical and leading me into psychosis, or is this a real thing that's useful for me and for others and can be beneficial to myself and to others? And the only way to find out is by taking the time to explore it and finding the meaning and why it's in your life and integrating that meaning into your life. And if it's locked away, if we decided to lock it away, or if some trauma locked it away, we need to find out, why did I lock it away? Why did this trauma lock it away? What was the experience? What is the phenomenology? How do I now integrate this and find the meaning in it? And that's the thing. That's the key, is not denying it, but also not indulging it too much to the point of being fascinated and obsessed with it, but with a sober mind and that sense of undecidability, a sort of agnosticism toward it, to fully explore it and truly find its meaning in as unbiased a way as possible, but not totally unbiased, because you're trying to find the meaning for you in your life. What is it? And you'll find this intersection between subjectivity and objectivity. Sometimes we want to say, this experience happened to me, it is totally objective, has nothing to do with me. It was just a precognitive dream. It came true a month later, that dream I had or whatever, which means it's totally objective and has nothing to do with me. Well, and then on the other side, you'll have a psychologist who says it's completely subjective and has only everything to do with you. Perhaps there's a middle ground here, where a real phenomenon can also be subjective, can also have subjective meaning for you. For example, there is a case I read of a woman who had become pregnant, and she began fearing for the world, for the safety of her child, for the safety of other children. You know, being pregnant had a big change in her consciousness, and it gave her a whole bunch of fear. And then she had a precognitive dream of a terrible attack that occurred, and it was a bomb and it killed a bunch of children, and it was a horrible event. This happened, I think, in the late 90s, I can't remember. And she dreamed it, and pretty detailed in it, and then it happened. And the first thing she thought is, this is objective, I have precognitive abilities, and it has nothing to do with me. But it turned out it does have meaning for her, because she was pregnant at the time, and she was fearing for the lives of children in general, for the lives of her own child. And the real phenomenon and her subjective feelings had a cross-section here. And so she worked with a therapist to understand that and discover this meaning, and her mental health improved drastically after integrating this. Some psychologists wanted to say it had nothing, or it had only to do with her subjectivity, and it was just a coincidence that the dream seems like it came real later. The paranormal researchers said, like, oh, you're a precog, it has nothing to do with you, this is totally objective. But then a good therapist was like, actually, there is an intersection here. There is an integrative thing. And she felt a lot better. Thinking of it as totally objective and that she is a precog and has to develop these mediumistic capabilities was leading her into more and more paranoia and fear and ungroundedness, and thinking like, oh, am I causing these things to happen, and so on, because she had other precognitive dreams. And that was unhinging her, and that was also terrible for her mental health and for her life as a mother and so on. It wasn't until she found that integrative therapy that these things improved for her, that her life began to improve. I don't know what happened afterwards. I should follow up on this woman if there's any public record, but I just know that her mental health improved. So finding these things within you is extremely important right now. There's something you need to integrate, a talent you have, and to find that balance so that you don't get lost in fantasy and obsession, and that you don't dismiss it through super subjectivity, or denialism or whatever, because it can be very useful to you and helpful. So, Libra, I think that's where the Oracle and I are going to leave it for you today. I hope this was insightful. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I always appreciate you stopping by. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you next time.